Every night, June waited for her grandma to go to sleep. She'd listen for the gentle snore from the back bedroom, the one that meant it was safe. Only then did she grab the little plate she'd hidden under her bed last night's bread, a cold sausage, half an apple from her own dinner. Quiet as she could, June tiptoed through the old house, her socks barely making a sound on the wooden floor. She didn't even turn on the porch light. Somehow, she just knew that whoever she was leaving food for liked the dark. Sometimes June wondered why she kept doing it. It had started weeks ago, right after the first big thunderstorm of spring. That night, she'd seen muddy paw prints on the porch steps and a half-eaten crust on the ground. No one ever mentioned it. Grandma just swept the steps like always. But something told June that somebody out there was hungry somebody small. And scared, hiding just out of sight, June whispered into the night as she set the plate down. "If you're hungry, it's okay. You can eat. I won't tell anyone." The porch was cold, and the street was empty. Only the wind and a far-off siren. June's heart thudded in her chest. She always felt brave, stepping out into the dark, but tonight was different. She could feel it. Something was watching her. She hurried back inside, closed the door, and pressed her face to the window, peering out through the thin curtain. The plate sat alone on the porch. Minutes ticked by. Nothing happened. When she woke the next morning, the plate was licked clean. There were muddy paw prints again, and a single black hair stuck to the rim. June held the hair in her palm. "It's you, isn't it?" she whispered. She thought about asking Grandma, but she knew what she'd say. "Wild dogs don't come this close to people, June. You keep dreaming." So June didn't say anything. The next night, it rained. Not a heavy storm, but enough to make the yard smell like mud. June almost didn't go out, but something in her heart told her she had to. She crept down the hallway, every step careful. Every shadow stretched long and thin by the moon. She put the plate in the usual spot. She started to turn back. That's when she saw them two yellow eyes in the dark, shining like glass marbles just beyond the porch steps. Her breath caught. She froze. The eyes didn't move. For a long moment, June stared. The only sound was rain tapping the metal roof, and her own heartbeat. Then, slowly, the eyes crept forward. A shape followed, low to the ground, black and soaking wet. A dog. Its head hung low, ribs showing beneath the fur, one ear torn and flopped sideways. It limped, barely putting weight on its front paw. June whispered, barely louder than the rain, "It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." The dog paused, sniffed the air, and looked at her, really looked at her, like it was deciding if she was safe. June didn't move. She tried to look small, harmless. The dog shuffled closer, nose twitching. It stopped at the edge of the plate and waited, eyes flicking between June and the food. She stepped back, hands up. "It's all for you," she said. "Go on, eat." The dog lowered its head and began to eat in quick, hungry bites. It kept glancing up like it expected her to yell or throw something. But June just stood there, watching, her heart breaking a little with every mouthful. Who had hurt this dog? Who had left it so thin and scared? The porch light flicked on suddenly. Grandma's voice rang from inside. "June, what are you doing out there?" June spun around, guilt burning her cheeks. "Nothing, Grandma. I was just looking at the rain." The dog vanished. 1 second, it was there, eating. The next, it melted into the shadows, eyes, disappearing first, then the rest of its trembling body. Only the empty plate was left. Grandma peered through the door. "You know you're not supposed to be outside at night. Get in here now." June hurried inside, clutching the plate to her chest. She cleaned it in the sink, hiding the black hair in her pocket. Grandma didn't say anything more, just shook her head and muttered, "That girl and her secrets." Lying in bed, June listened to the rain and wondered if the dog was cold. She whispered into the darkness, "I hope you're okay out there." For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel quite so alone. She felt watched over, somehow like the dog was waiting for her too. The next morning, June checked the tea. Porch first thing. More paw prints, a bit of dried mud on the step, and the faintest outline of where the dog had lain curled up beside the door. June touched the marks, a promise growing in her heart. She would keep leaving food. She would keep waiting. One day, maybe, the dog would trust her enough to stay. She smiled to herself and whispered, "See you tonight, friend." Somewhere out there, she hoped, the dog heard her. And maybe, just maybe, it was already waiting for her too. June's mind spun all day at school. She couldn't focus on fractions or the boring story in her reading book. All she could picture was the dog, the limp, the torn ear, the look in those shining eyes. Was he hurt? Was he out there now, hungry and alone? At lunch, June picked at her sandwich. "You look weird," one of the other girls said, wrinkling her nose. June just shrugged. She didn't want to talk about the dog. If she told anyone, they'd only say she was lying, or worse, they'd call animal control. All afternoon, the rain clouds gathered again. June's stomach twisted as thunder rolled far away. She hurried home as soon as the bell rang, her shoes splashing through puddles. She barely noticed when a car drove by and sprayed water up her legs. She only cared about getting back to the little house on Maple Lane. Grandma was at the window, arms folded. "You're soaked, June. Dry off and change before you get sick." June did what she was told, but her mind stayed on the porch. Would the dog come again in the rain? She wrapped a towel around herself and waited for Grandma to settle in front of her soap opera. That night, she put out the plate early. The sky was dark, but the rain had stopped. June placed bits of leftover chicken and a chunk of bread on the plate. Her heart hammered. She stepped back, hiding behind the porch railing, and watched. The street was empty. Houses glowed with warm lights, but no one else was outside. The neighborhood felt like a secret world, just June, the porch, and the quiet. She held her breath. Then a shiver of movement caught her eye. At first, she thought it was just a shadow, but it moved again, crawling low along the fence, ears back. It was him, the black dog. The limp was worse tonight. Each step looked painful. His fur was still wet in places and caked with mud. June tried to keep perfectly still. She didn't want to scare him off. The dog crept closer to the porch, keeping his nose low. His tail stayed tucked tight against his belly. He stopped just before the plate, his head low, eyes glancing up at June. She whispered, "It's okay, you can eat. I promise I won't hurt you." The dog hesitated, then sniffed the food. He started eating in small, careful bites, never turning his back to her. Every now and then he'd stop and look at her, checking to make sure she wasn't moving. June felt tears prick her eyes. "You're really hungry, huh?" she whispered. "You can have it all. I don't mind." The dog finished the chicken and started on the bread. June studied him, noticing the scars along his back and the jagged tear in his left ear. She wanted to reach out and touch him, but she knew better. He didn't trust her yet. Maybe he never would. After a few minutes, the dog looked at her one last time. June barely breathed. He licked the plate clean, then turned and limped away into the darkness, disappearing under the broken fence at the side of the yard. June stayed there, listening to the night, feeling something shift in her chest. For the first time, she didn't feel scared of the dark. The porch felt less empty. She whispered, "Good night, friend. Please come back tomorrow." She picked up the plate and slipped inside. As she washed it in the sink, Grandma called from the other room. "Who are you talking to out there?" June's heart skipped. She tried to sound casual. "Just the stars," she said. "It's a nice night." Grandma didn't say anything for a while. June dried the plate and put it away. Before bed, she took the black hair from her pocket and looked at it again, rolling it between her fingers. She hid it in her jewelry box under the bed. That night, she dreamed about the dog. In her dream, he wasn't scared or limping. He ran through the yard, his tail wagging, barking joyfully. June ran with him, laughing, her worries falling away like leaves. She woke up smiling, her pillow damp from happy tears. The next day, June checked the porch as soon as she got home. There were paw prints again, deeper this time, pressed into the mud. She knelt down and traced them with her finger. There was something new, a tiny spot of red, just a drop. June's chest tightened. "You're hurt," she whispered. "How can I help you?" That night, June left not only food, but also a little dish of water and a soft towel she'd stolen from the laundry. She sat behind the door, peeking through the crack, waiting. It took a long time, but finally the dog appeared. He sniffed. Everything, the food, the water, even the towel. June said softly, "You can sleep here if you want. It's warm." "I won't tell anyone." The dog didn't come closer, but he curled up on the towel after eating. June watched him close his eyes, his body finally relaxing for the first time. She smiled and whispered, "You're safe here. I promise." And for the first time, the dog's tail gave a tiny, hopeful wag. That was the night June gave him a name. "Good night, Shadow," she said. "I hope you come back tomorrow." Shadow didn't answer, but June felt the promise in the air. A secret friendship had begun. If you feel connected to this story, please like, share, and let me know your city or country below. By the next evening, June felt like her whole life revolved around the porch and the quiet hope that Shadow would return. School felt distant and colorless. She counted down the hours, waiting for darkness, waiting to see those yellow eyes again. At dinner, Grandma noticed how quiet June was. "Are you feeling all right, honey?" June nodded, poking at her peas. "Just tired, Grandma." Grandma smiled softly, but June saw worry in her eyes. She wished she could explain how the food was. Never really for her, how she looked forward to night more than anything. But this was her secret, hers and Shadow's. After Grandma went to bed, June crept out as usual. She carried leftover chicken, some bread, and a small piece of cheese she'd saved from her own plate. The porch was cool, and the air carried the faintest hint of rain. June set the plate down and waited, just out of sight. Minutes passed. Then, the sound she'd been hoping for, soft paws on wood, the faintest rustle in the bushes. Shadow appeared, his limp a little less pronounced tonight. He sniffed the air, eyes searching the shadows, before creeping toward the plate. "June?" Whispered, "Hi, Shadow, you're back." He hesitated at her voice, but hunger won. He started to eat, slower now, taking his time. June slid a little closer, careful not to startle him. "You don't have to be scared of me. I won't hurt you." Shadow looked up, chewing, his eyes fixed on her face. June's heart fluttered. She felt like he was listening, really listening. So she kept talking, her words a soft stream meant only for him. "My parents went away a long time ago. Grandma says it was an accident, but she never talks about it. Sometimes I dream they'll come back for me. But mostly it's just us here. Emmy and Grandma. She's nice, but she's always tired." June's voice trembled. "Kids at school are mean. They make fun of my shoes. They say they're too old, but Grandma can't buy new ones, not yet." Shadow paused mid-bite, head tilted. June wondered what he saw in her, just a lonely girl sharing her pain with a stray. It felt right, though. Like Shadow understood. "I wish you could talk," June whispered. "I bet you've seen a lot. I bet you've been alone, too." The porch light flickered on, making Shadow jump. He darted back, crouching low, ready to bolt. June shook her head quickly. It's just a light shadow. It's okay. No one's coming. Shadow stayed close to the shadows, finishing his meal in tense silence. June wanted to reach out to touch his fur, but she knew it was too soon. Trust was a fragile thing. After Shadow finished, he licked the plate clean and hesitated at the edge of the porch. Instead of leaving, he turned around once, looking at June with something soft in his eyes. She watched, breathless, as he dropped something near the steps. Then he disappeared into the darkness. June tiptoed over and picked it up, a torn strip of pink ribbon, ragged at the ends, dirty and faded, but still bright against the wood. June's hands trembled. She recognized the ribbon. It used to be hers from the box in her room, but she hadn't seen it in months. How had Shadow found it? She pressed the ribbon to her chest and blinked back tears. "Thank you, Shadow," she whispered. "You remembered." The next day, June slipped the ribbon into her pocket and kept it with her at school. She kept her head down, but the teasing didn't bother her as much. Every time someone laughed at her shoes, she touched the ribbon and remembered Shadow's eyes, the way he listened, the small gift he'd left behind. That night, June tried something new. She sat on the porch and talked, not just in whispers, but in real conversation. "Today was hard," she said, "but I made it. You helped." Shadow came, as he always did. He ate quietly, then curled up at the edge of the porch, just close enough to listen. June talked about everything, her fears, her dreams, the ache she felt for her parents. Shadow didn't judge. He just listened, his breathing slow and steady, his body finally relaxing. For the first time in a long time, June felt seen. Not by the world, not by her classmates, but by the one friend who mattered most. Shadow was still wild, still scarred, but he was her secret, her comfort in the lonely. Dark. As the night deepened, June stood to go inside. She whispered, "Good night, Shadow. See you tomorrow." Shadow didn't move, but as June turned to leave, she heard a soft sound, half whimper, half sigh. She smiled. Maybe he'd found a friend. Inside, June placed the ribbon under her pillow, a promise she'd never forget. She fell asleep to the sound of Shadow's breathing just outside the door, knowing that neither of them had to be alone anymore. June woke before sunrise, clutching the pink ribbon in her fist. The air in her room felt heavy, like it was filled with secrets. She got dressed quietly and slipped the ribbon into her pocket. Her mind kept circling one thought: how had Shadow found her ribbon? The question stuck with her through breakfast, through Grandma's gentle talk about chores, through the whole long day. That afternoon, while Grandma napped, June wandered the halls of the old house. Shadows clung to the corners and dust danced in the streaks of sunlight. June's feet led her to the attic door, the one place she was never supposed to go. But today the mystery pulled her forward. The attic was dark and stuffy, smelling like forgotten things. June flicked on the tiny light and tiptoed through piles of boxes. She wasn't sure what she was looking for until she found it, a dusty cardboard box marked family. She opened it and gasped. Old photos tumbled out, some with her baby face, some with people she barely remembered. And then she saw it, a picture of her mother, years younger, kneeling in the grass. Her mother smiled at the camera, hugging a black puppy with a patch of white on its chest. June's heart pounded. The puppy's eyes looked just like Shadow's. She stared at the photo, hardly breathing. Behind her, Grandma's voice startled her. "What are you doing up here, June?" June spun around, holding the photo. "Grandma, who's this dog? Was he ours?" Grandma's eyes went distant, sad. She sat on an old trunk and motioned for June to sit beside her. "That dog," he showed. "Up the year your mama turned 11. No one knew where he came from. She named him Duke. He followed her everywhere, never left her side." June held the photo tighter. He looks just like Shadow, Grandma. I think he's the same dog. Grandma shook her head, tears gathering. That can't be, sweetheart. Duke ran off the night your mama left. He never came back. We searched for days. Your mama. She was heartbroken. I told her sometimes dogs just get lost, but the truth is, he saved her life once. June's voice trembled. Saved her? Grandma nodded, wiping her eyes. Your mama went down to the creek when the river flooded. She fell in, and Duke pulled her out. Got himself cut up pretty bad, but he didn't let go. That night, your mama and I fought about something silly, and she ran out the door. Duke chased after her. When I found him days later, he was hurt, all scratched and bleeding, but your mama was gone. He just sat by the door, waiting. I never saw him again after that week. June felt a lump in her throat. Grandma. I think Shadow is Duke. He came back for us. He's got the same eyes, the same limp. Grandma looked away, her hands shaking. You're just imagining it, June. Sometimes we see what we want to see. But if it is him, if Duke really found his way home after all this time, well, that would be a miracle. They sat in silence. June looked down at the photo, her mother's bright eyes staring back, the puppy pressed close. She wanted to ask 1,000 questions, but the words tangled up. Finally, Grandma reached out and squeezed June's hand. I know things have been hard since your parents, since they left. But you're not alone, honey. Not while I'm here. Not while you have that dog out there watching over you. June blinked back tears. I just want to know the truth, Grandma. Why did Mama leave? Why didn't she come back? Grandma's face crumpled, and she looked away. I wish I knew. June, she was hurting. I think she thought we'd be better off. But I was wrong to let her go. June pressed the photo to her chest. Do you think Shadow remembers her? Grandma's voice was soft. If dogs remember anything, it's love. And your mama loved Duke more than anything in the world. That night, June left the photo and the ribbon on the porch beside Shadow's plate. She waited behind the door, hoping for a sign. After a while, she saw him Shadow, moving slow, limping. He sniffed the photo, then the ribbon. He laid down beside them, letting out a deep, tired sigh. June opened the door just a crack. Did you really know my mama, Shadow? Were you her? Dog? Shadow raised his head, looking right at her. For the first time, he didn't flinch or run. He stayed there, his old eyes filled with something ancient and gentle. June knelt at the threshold, tears slipping down her cheeks. I wish you could talk, Shadow. I wish you could tell me what happened. Shadow inched forward, just enough that June could hear him breathing. She wanted to reach out, but she held herself back, letting the trust build, slow and real, inside. Grandma watched from the hallway. She whispered, He's not just any stray, June. Maybe he really did come back for you. June nodded, wiping her tears. I think he did, Grandma. I think he's been waiting this whole time. As Shadow lay down beside the photo and ribbon, June felt something settle in her heart, a connection across years, a bond strong enough to survive even loss. She closed the door softly, whispering, Good night, Shadow. Thank you for coming back. And outside, in the quiet, Shadow guarded the porch, holding close to the memories that kept bringing him home. June barely slept that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Shadow's tired face and the old family photo. She hugged her pillow and wondered if Shadow dreamed of her mother or if dogs just remembered in their own way. Morning came, cloudy and gray. June moved through the day like a shadow herself, barely speaking at breakfast, barely hearing Grandma's gentle questions. School felt strange. June stared out the window as rain spat against the glass, her thoughts stuck on Shadow and the past. At recess, she sat alone under the covered bench, running her fingers over the pink ribbon hidden in her pocket. It felt like a charm, or maybe a secret signal to the universe. Please, she thought, don't let anything happen to him. When the final bell rang, June hurried home through puddles and wind. She couldn't wait to see if Shadow would be waiting. If last night had really happened, or if it was all just a lonely dream. As she turned the corner onto Maple Lane, she stopped short. A strange truck she'd never seen before sat parked on the opposite side of the street. It was old, rusty, and beat up, the kind of truck that didn't belong in their quiet neighborhood. June's heart thudded. A man sat inside, slouched low, watching the houses. For a second, their eyes met. June looked away, clutching her backpack. Tighter. She walked quickly to her house, glancing over her shoulder until the truck finally rumbled away. Inside, she found Grandma in the kitchen. "Did you see that truck out there?" June asked, voice shaky. Grandma peered out the window. "No, I didn't. You know, people come and go, especially when the weather's bad." But June felt uneasy. That night, she put Shadow's plate out a little earlier than usual. She added extra chicken and 2 slices of bread, wanting to make sure he got enough. She waited by the window, watching for any sign of the rusty truck. The street was quiet as the sky faded from gray to black. Minutes stretched by. June's heartbeat matched the ticking clock in the hallway. She checked the porch, nothing. No paw prints, no sign of Shadow. Her chest tightened with worry. Where was he? She went out to the porch, holding the photo and the ribbon in her fist. "Shadow?" she called softly. "It's me. Are you out there?" The only answer was the wind. She crouched by the steps and waited, eyes burning, refusing to cry. Suddenly, headlights swung around the corner. The same rusty truck crept slowly down Maple Lane, engine rumbling. June ducked behind the porch railing. The truck stopped right in front of their house. The man inside looked around, then leaned out his window. He whistled a sharp, ugly sound that made June's skin crawl. "Hey!" Grandma's voice shouted from inside. She flipped on the porch light. "What are you doing out there?" The man muttered something and drove off, tires squealing. June stood up, legs shaking. Grandma appeared at the door, frowning. "What's going on, June? Why are you hiding?" June ran to her, wrapping her arms around her waist. "There's a man in that truck, Grandma. He keeps watching the house, and Shadow didn't come tonight. I'm scared." Grandma stroked her hair. "Let's go inside. We'll lock the doors and keep the lights on. I'll call the police if that truck comes back, okay?" June nodded, wiping her eyes. She pressed her face against the window for hours, searching the darkness for any sign of Shadow. But the plate stayed full. No dog, no paw prints, nothing. But silence and rain. The next morning, June's worry grew. She ran to the porch before breakfast. The plate was untouched, but something else caught her eye. Muddy paw prints leading down the steps toward the ditch, and next to them, deep tire tracks pressed into the soft earth. June's heart dropped. "Shadow," she whispered, voice trembling. "Something's happened to you." She followed the tracks to the edge of the woods, where they disappeared in the thick grass. She turned back, clutching the photo and ribbon tight to her chest. "I won't let you disappear again," she promised. "I won't." Inside, Grandma tried to comfort her, but June could barely hear her words. All she could think was, "Shadow came back for me, and now he's in trouble. I have to find him. I have to save him, just like he once saved my mother." June barely touched her breakfast. Her stomach was a knot of fear and determination. Shadow was missing. The paw prints and tire tracks haunted her thoughts. Grandma kept saying, "Give it time, honey. Dogs wander sometimes." But June knew better. She remembered the man in the truck. She remembered Shadow's old scars and his limp. Something bad had happened. She stuffed the pink ribbon in her pocket. along with the family photo, and waited until Grandma settled in front of her TV shows. June slipped out the back door, moving fast and quiet, heart pounding with every step. She followed the prints to the edge of the woods, just like the day before, but this time she didn't stop. She took a deep breath and stepped into the trees. Branches clawed at her arms. The ground squished under her feet. The woods felt different today, darker, thicker, filled with secrets. June followed the muddy paw prints and deep tire ruts. She whispered to herself, "Don't be scared. You have to find him. He needs you." The trail twisted and dipped, leading her deeper into the forest. June stumbled on roots and slipped in mud. She kept going, calling in a shaky voice, "Shadow, Shadow, where are you?" Her voice sounded small in the thick woods. No answer. Only the caw of a distant crow and the rustle of leaves overhead. June felt tears prick her eyes, but she wiped them away. "Keep going," she whispered. The tracks led to a clearing where an old sagging shed sat, nearly swallowed by vines and weeds. June's heart hammered. The tire tracks ended here. She stepped closer, holding her breath. The air stank gasoline, old trash, and something worse. She crept around the shed, searching for a way in. The door was half off its hinges. June pushed. It opened, and it groaned in protest. Inside, the shadows moved. June blinked, eyes adjusting to the gloom dot, then she heard a soft, broken whimper. June's heart leaped. Shadow? In the corner, beneath a broken shelf and a pile of dirty rags, lay Shadow. He looked smaller than ever, his black fur matted with mud and blood. One of his legs was twisted beneath him. His chest rose and fell in quick, shaky breaths. June rushed to his side, falling to her knees. "Shadow, I'm here. I found you." Tears slid down her cheeks as she reached out, careful not to touch his wounds. "Who did this to you?" "Her." Voice shook with anger and fear. Shadow whined softly, his eyes meeting hers. He tried to lift his head, but he was too weak. June pulled out the ribbon and the photo, laying them gently beside him. "It's me, June. I'm not leaving you. I promise." She looked around the shed. Broken bottles, oily rags, and a gas can lay scattered in the shadows. June shuddered. "We have to get out of here, Shadow, before that man comes back." She searched for anything that could help: a blanket, an old shirt, anything soft. She found a filthy jacket and laid it gently over Shadow. June stroked his head, whispering, "You're so brave. I know you're scared. I am too. But you saved my mama. You saved me." She wiped her tears with the back of her hand. "Please don't give up, please." Shadow closed his eyes, breathing slow and shallow. June glanced at the door, afraid to leave him, but knowing she needed help. She thought of Grandma, but how could she explain all this? Who would believe her? Suddenly, footsteps crunched outside. June froze, heart hammering in her chest. The shed door creaked again. June held her breath and pressed herself against Shadow, trying to hide them both in the darkness. A man's voice muttered, low and angry, "Stupid mutt, not worth the trouble. Should have finished the job." June's blood ran cold. The man's boots scraped closer. June's mind raced. She reached for a loose board and clutched it tight. The man stepped into the light, his face hidden in shadow. He saw June and Shadow and swore loudly. June stood up, voice trembling but fierce. "Stay away from him." The man snarled, "You shouldn't be here, little girl. This isn't your dog." June gripped the board tighter, shaking but determined. "He's not yours either. Leave us alone." For a second, the man hesitated. Then, from somewhere in the woods, a dog barked loud and sharp. The man spun around, startled, then cursed it and stomped away. June listened as his footsteps faded, then let out a shaky breath. She dropped the board and knelt beside Shadow again. It's okay. He's gone. I'm here. June wiped her face. I'll get help. I promise. But I'm not leaving you, not now, not ever. Shadow blinked slowly, and for a moment, June saw a spark of hope in his tired eyes. She squeezed his paw gently and whispered, Hold on, Shadow. We're going to make it out of here. Together. June took one last look at the woods outside, fear still prickling her skin. But she was ready to fight. She wouldn't let anyone take Shadow away now again. June knelt in the dim, filthy shed, her hand resting on Shadow's battered side. He whimpered softly, every breath a struggle. Her own heart hammered so loudly she was afraid it would give them away. The man's footsteps were gone, but the echo of his angry words lingered in the stale air. June looked at Shadow, wiping the tears from her cheeks with the back of her sleeve. We're getting out of here. Shadow, she whispered, her voice shaking but fierce. I promise. You just have to trust me. Shadow's eyes flickered open, dull and tired, but he tried to lift his head. June took a deep breath, glancing around the shed for anything she could use to help. Her eyes landed on a half-buried rope and a splintered crate. She ripped a piece of cloth from her shirt and tied it around Shadow's wounded leg, her hands trembling. He whimpered again but didn't pull away. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the loose tin roof. The scent of gasoline still hung thick in the air, making June's stomach churn. She squeezed Shadow's paw. I know you're hurting, but we have to move. If we stay here, he might come back. Shadow tried to stand, but his leg buckled. June slid her arms beneath his chest and gently helped him up. He leaned against her, his weight heavy but familiar. Together, step by step, they made their way to the broken door, June murmuring soft encouragements. You're so brave, Shadow. Just a little farther. As they stepped outside, June's eyes widened in fear. In the clearing, a flicker of orange caught her eye. Smoke was curling from the back of the shed. Flames licked at the old boards, growing fast. June's heart skipped. The man had set it on fire. Shadow stiffened beside her, a low growl rumbling deep in his chest. June pulled him along, voice urgent. Come on, Shadow. We have to run. The flames spread quickly, crackling and snapping as dry grass caught. The woods seemed to glow with a terrifying orange light. June could barely see the path back, her vision blurred by tears and smoke. Branches whipped at her face as she dragged Shadow toward the trees. Behind them, the shed collapsed in a shower of sparks. June heard shouting, the man's voice angry and afraid. She didn't look back. Shadow stumbled, his breath ragged, but he didn't stop. June kept talking to him, her words desperate and trembling. Just a little more, Shadow. You can do this. Please, please don't give up. A sudden roar echoed as the fire leaped to a nearby tree. June's lungs burned. She pulled Shadow toward a fallen log, ducking low to the ground. Smoke made her cough, but she kept moving, dragging Shadow inch by inch through the underbrush. Suddenly, there was a crash in the brush behind them. June turned in terror, expecting the man, but instead she saw a deer bolt past, fleeing the fire. She let out a shaky breath. It's just a deer. We're okay? They crawled through the thickest part of the woods, the heat pressing close behind them. June's arms and legs ached, but she refused to let go. Shadow's steps grew. Slower, his body shaking with exhaustion. Finally, they reached the edge of the trees. Night had fallen, and the world outside the burning wood seemed almost peaceful. June gasped for air, dragging Shadow to a patch of soft grass. She collapsed beside him, both of them trembling. Shadow lay still, his breath shallow and uneven. June stroked his fur, tears streaming down her face. You did it, Shadow. You got out. You're safe now. She listened to the distant crackle of fire, the sirens starting up far away, and the soft wind rustling the grass. For a moment, all she could do was hold Shadow and cry. Relief and fear tangled together. Suddenly, Shadow lifted his head, ears pricked. June followed his gaze to the darkness beyond the clearing. She heard distant voices and saw flashes of a flashlight. Hope surged in her chest. Maybe someone had seen the fire. Maybe help was coming, she whispered. Stay with me, Shadow. Please, you're not allowed to leave me. Not now. Shadow whined softly, pressing his nose against her hand. June squeezed his paw. I love you, Shadow. I need you to fight. Just a little longer. As the sirens drew closer and the orange glow faded behind them, June knew they'd made it out alive. But Shadow was weak, too weak to walk any farther. June wiped her eyes and looked around desperately. A man in a uniform appeared, shining a flashlight over the clearing. He shouted, "Is anyone there?" June called out, her voice cracking, "Over here! Please help, my dog is hurt." The man rushed over, kneeling beside them. "It's okay. You're safe now," he said gently. "We'll get help." June sobbed, finally letting herself collapse against Shadow's side. The fire still burned in the trees, but hope flickered in her heart. Shadow was safe. They'd escaped the darkness together. June sat beside Shadow in the back of the animal rescue van, her hands never leaving his side. The night felt endless. As the flashing lights faded behind them and the sound of sirens grew softer. Shadow's breathing was shallow, his fur singed and matted. June kept whispering, "You're okay. You're safe. I'm right here." A gentle woman in a green vest smiled at her. "We're almost there, sweetie. Your dog is a real fighter." June squeezed Shadow's paw. "His name's Shadow. Please help him." At the clinic, everything happened in a blur. Vets rushed to lift Shadow onto a table, voices low and urgent. June pressed her face to the window, watching them check his wounds and clean away the blood. Every second felt like an hour. A tall vet with kind eyes crouched beside June. "You did a brave thing, bringing him here. Can you wait outside while we take care of him?" June nodded, wiping her eyes. She sat in the hallway, hugging her knees, the photo and ribbon clutched tight. Time moved in strange jumps. Sometimes she heard Shadow whine. Other times she heard nothing at all. Fear wrapped around her heart like cold hands. After what felt like forever, the vet came out, his face tired but gentle. "He's stable now. He has some old injuries, but nothing we can't treat. You saved him." Relief crashed over June. "Can I see him?" The vet nodded and led her into the small room. Shadow lay on a blanket, and four in his paw and his head, resting on his front legs. He opened his eyes as June knelt beside him, and his tail thumped weakly against the floor. June smiled through her tears. "You did it, Shadow. You made it." As June stroked his fur, her fingers brushed against something cold and hard beneath the matted hair at his neck. Curious, she parted the fur and gasped. There, hidden under years of dirt, was a rusty metal tag. June squinted at it, heart pounding. The vet leaned over. "What is it?" June wiped the tag clean, revealing faded letters. She read out loud, "Duke, property of Eleanor Grace." For a moment, the whole world stopped. June stared at the tag, then at Shadow. "Eleanor Grace. That's my mother's name." Her voice broke, and she pressed a hand to her mouth. The vet's eyes widened. "Are you sure?" June nodded, shaking. He used to be my mom's dog. Grandma told me stories. He disappeared when I was a baby." The vet turned the tag over. "This tag is old. This dog, he must be at least 13. It's a miracle he survived out there so long." June buried her face in Shadow's fur. "You really did come back for us, didn't you?" she whispered. "You found your way home." The vet put a gentle hand on her shoulder. "He's a tough one, and he's got someone who loves him very much." That makes all the difference. June held Shadow close, her tears soaking his fur. The pain and fear of the past days melted away, replaced by a fierce joy. Shadow wasn't just any stray. He was Duke, her mother's loyal friend, the dog who'd never stopped waiting for his family. The vet handed June a small bowl of water. Let's see if he'll drink. June held the bowl to Shadow's nose. He sniffed it, then lapped at the water, his tongue moving slow but sure. That's it, boy. You're safe now. As the night wore on, June curled up beside Shadow on the clinic floor, refusing to leave his side. You found your way back, she whispered. You kept your promise. Shadow closed his eyes, his breathing calm. June stroked his fur, feeling the old tag under her fingers, a tiny piece of metal that told the whole story. Duke, Shadow, whatever his name was, he was family. He was home. June barely left Shadow's side at the clinic. She slept curled beside him on a pile of old towels, her hand always resting on his fur. Every time Shadow whimpered, June would whisper, "I'm here. I'm not leaving you, not ever again." The long night faded slowly into morning, painting soft light on the clinic walls. When Grandma arrived, her eyes red and worried, June ran to her, flinging her arms around her waist. "He's going to be okay, Grandma." They fixed his leg and cleaned his wounds. And look! June pulled out the metal tag, her hands shaking. Shadow's not just a stray. He's Duke, Mama's dog. Grandma took the tag in trembling fingers, reading the name. Her face changed. Her lips trembled, and for a moment she looked older and sadder than June had ever seen her. Grandma sat heavily in the clinic chair, covering her mouth. Tears spilled down her cheeks, silent and unstoppable. "Oh, June," she whispered, "I never thought I'd see him again. Not after all these years. I thought he was gone for good, just like your mama." June held her grandmother's hand. "He found his way back, Grandma. All this time he was looking for us, for her, for home." Grandma wept softly. "I blamed myself for so long. The night your mama left, I said things I could never take back. I was angry, scared. She ran out that door, and Duke ran after her. He came back days later, all bloody and limping, but your mama was gone. He waited by the door, June, for days. I think he waited for years." Shadow, hearing the voices, lifted his head. His old eyes found Grandma, and his tail thumped gently. Grandma knelt beside him, reaching out with shaking hands. "Oh, Duke, you faithful boy. You never gave up on us, did you?" June watched as Grandma stroked the dog's graying muzzle, tears still slipping down her face. "He's been out there all this time, protecting us," June whispered. "I think he's why I never felt completely alone." Grandma nodded, her voice raw. "He was the last piece of your mama left for us. I didn't know how much I missed him until I saw him again." June squeezed Grandma's hand. "We have to take him home, Grandma. He belongs with us." "We can take care of him together." Grandma nodded, wiping her eyes. "Yes, sweetheart, we'll make a place for him. He deserves to be safe and loved for whatever time he has left." The vet approached, his voice gentle. "He'll need lots of rest. He's old, but he's strong. Just let him heal, and he might have good days ahead." "Thank you," June said. "Thank you for saving him." Grandma smiled, though tears still shone in her eyes. "You saved him, June. If you hadn't kept leaving that food, you wouldn't have made it this far. You brought him back." On the way home, June sat in the back seat with Shadow's head in her lap. She traced the faded letters on his tag, feeling the weight of all those lost years and silent hopes. Grandma drove slowly, glancing back at them with a look June had never seen before, something like forgiveness. That evening, June set up bed for Shadow by the window, close to the porch where he'd waited for so long. She placed the pink ribbon and the old family photo beside his blanket. Shadow curled up and let out a deep, tired sigh, as if finally his long journey was overdone. As the house grew quiet, Grandma sat beside June on the floor. Her voice was soft. Your mama loved Duke more than anything. He kept her safe when nothing else could. I wish I'd understood that before. June leaned against her. Maybe he can help us heal too. For a long time, they just sat in silence, listening to Shadow's steady breathing, feeling something broken start to mend. June knew things would never be the same, but maybe, with Shadow back, they could begin again. And as the moon rose outside, Grandma whispered, "Thank you for waiting for us, Duke. Thank you for bringing June back to me too." Shadow's pause barely made a sound as Grandma and June guided him into the house. For the first time in years, he was not a shadow slipping through darkness, but part of a home again. June knelt by his side as he sniffed the doorway, tail wagging faintly, his tired body shaking with relief. "Welcome home, Shadow," June said softly. She glanced at Grandma, who smiled through tears. Grandma laid out a soft blanket in the living room and set down a bowl of warm broth. "You deserve the best, old boy," she whispered. Scratching behind his ear. Shadow eased down onto the blanket, sighing deeply. June sat next to him, careful of his bandaged leg, and stroked his head. Shadow looked up at her, eyes soft with trust, and June felt her chest fill with warmth. The house seemed brighter with Shadow there, as if all the lonely corners had finally found light. June talked to him for hours, telling stories about school, about her favorite books, and about her hopes for the future. "I'm not so scared anymore," she admitted, twirling the pink ribbon in her fingers. "Not with you here." That night, June dragged her sleeping bag to the living room. She lay beside Shadow, feeling safe for the first time in a long while. In the darkness, she whispered, "I love you, Shadow. Please don't leave me." Shadow lifted his head and licked her cheek. June giggled, hugging him close. "See, Grandma? He's still protecting us." Grandma, standing in the doorway, nodded. "He always has, even when we didn't know it." Sometime after midnight, Shadow lifted his head and growled low. June froze, her heart beating hard. "What is it, boy?" she whispered. Shadow's ears pricked forward, his body tense. Grandma turned off the TV and listened too. Outside, faint footsteps crunched on the gravel path. June's breath caught. Someone was out there. Grandma peered through the curtains, her face pale. "Just a neighbor," she whispered, "probably going home late. But it's good to know Shadow's still keeping watch." June curled up against Shadow, feeling the steady thump of his heart. She fell asleep to the rhythm of his breathing, comforted by the gentle guard he kept. The next morning, Shadow was stronger. He wagged his tail when June brought him breakfast and let Grandma clean his wound without complaint. June giggled, watching him sniff every corner of the house as if making sure it was finally safe. Shadow liked to nap in the sunlight near the window. June would sit next to him, reading out loud or drawing pictures. Grandma watched them from the kitchen, a look of hope on her face. The house felt alive again, filled with laughter and quiet peace. One afternoon, a knock sounded at the door. June's heart fluttered as Grandma opened it. The mailman stood outside, holding a letter. "For you, ma'am," he said, handing over an envelope with shaky handwriting. Grandma's hands trembled as she read the name. "It's from her," she whispered. June stared. "From Mama?" Grandma nodded, tears in her eyes. She opened the letter and read out loud, her voice quivering. "Dear Mama and June, I've made so many mistakes. I think about you both every day. I want to come home if you'll let me. I miss you, love, Eleanor." For a moment, the whole world stood still. June clutched Shadow's collar, heart pounding. Grandma looked at her, hope and fear warring in her eyes. June whispered, "She's coming home, Grandma." She's really coming home." Grandma hugged her tight, both of them, crying. Shadow let out a quiet bark, his eyes bright and watchful, as if he understood everything. That night, June left Shadow's plate out on the porch, just like before. But this time, the food was untouched. Shadow slept inside, curled up by June's bed. She stroked his fur, feeling safe and loved. "Thank you, Shadow," she whispered, "for bringing us back together." As sleep claimed her, June dreamed of her mother's arms and Shadow's gentle eyes. And for the first time in years, her dreams were full of hope. Morning sunlight poured through the window as June woke with Shadow pressed against her side. She listened for a moment, no nightmares, no fear, just the steady rhythm of a dog's breath and the soft sounds of Grandma in the kitchen. It felt like life was changing, one small miracle at a time. By afternoon, the whole house buzzed with nervous energy. Grandma baked bread and wiped the table 3 times. June swept the porch and kept peeking out the window, clutching the letter. Even Shadow seemed to sense it, pacing near the door and whining when June tried to calm him. Finally, just as dusk settled over Maple Lane, a car turned onto their street. June's heart pounded as it slowed and parked in front of the house. The engine stopped. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, a woman stepped out, her hair a little longer and her clothes a bit worn. But June would have known her anywhere. Grandma stood frozen in the doorway. Shadow pressed against June's legs, tense and uncertain. The woman approached the gate, hands shaking, eyes searching the porch. She hesitated, then called softly, "Mama?" "June?" June didn't answer at first, her voice lost in her throat. She pressed closer to Shadow, who let out a low, cautious growl. The woman took a trembling step forward, tears sparkling in her eyes. Is that Duke?" Shadow's head snapped up at the name. He stared at the woman, his body quivering. Then, all at once, he limped across the porch, tail low, ears back. He stopped just inside the gate, sniffing the air, uncertain. The woman fell to her knees, sobbing. "Duke, you came back." She opened her arms, and Shadow crept closer, sniffing her hands, then pressing his head against her shoulder. His tail thumped once, slow and heavy. June watched, tears streaming down her cheeks. Grandma joined her, squeezing her hand. "Go!" "To her, June." With slow, shaking steps, June walked out onto the porch. She stood behind Shadow, afraid to hope, afraid to believe what she saw. The woman looked up, her face streaked with tears. "June? Baby, is that really you?" June nodded, her voice trembling. "Mama?" The woman choked out a laugh that was half a sob. "Yes, honey, it's me." She held out her arms, and June ran to her, burying her face in her mother's shoulder. Shadow pressed in close, as if guarding them both. For a long moment, no one spoke. Only the sound of crying and the hush of evening. Grandma knelt beside them, tears running down her cheeks. She reached out, hugging both June and her daughter tight. "Welcome home, Eleanor." "We missed you." Eleanor, June's mother, whispered, "I missed you too, Mama, every day. I thought I couldn't come back. I thought I didn't deserve it after everything I did." Grandma shook her head. "None of that matters now. You're here. That's all that counts." Shadow stayed pressed against Eleanor, letting her run her fingers through his fur. She held up the old metal tag, her eyes wide with wonder. "You kept it after all these years, Duke. You always did find your way home." June wiped her eyes and laughed through her tears. "His name's Shadow now. He's been my friend. He kept me safe when I was lonely." Eleanor hugged June again. "He kept us all safe. I wish I'd understood that sooner." As the sun dipped low, they all went inside 3 generations. And one old dog, finally together. Grandma served slices of fresh bread, and Eleanor told stories about the years she'd been gone. "I wanted to come back," she said, "but I was ashamed. I thought you'd all moved on. But every night I dreamed of Duke of this porch, of home." Shadow curled at Eleanor's feet, letting out a heavy sigh. June knelt and hugged him, whispering, "We're together now. You did it." Later, as darkness fell and quiet filled the house, Eleanor tucked June into bed for the first time in years. She stroked June's hair, her voice shaky but full of love. "I'm not leaving again, I promise." June smiled, holding her mother's hand. "I believe you." Downstairs, Grandma stood at the window, watching the moon rise. She wiped her cheeks and whispered, "Thank you, Duke. Thank you for bringing my family home." In the hush of night, June listened to Shadow's steady breathing and her mother's gentle words. The house felt full again, full of hope, forgiveness, and the kind of love that never truly leaves. And on the porch, beneath the old swing, Shadow finally closed his eyes, his job done, his family whole once more. Shadow spent his days on the porch beneath the old swing, where the sun warmed the wood and the scent of fresh bread drifted from the kitchen. June watched him from the window, her heart both full and fragile. Every morning she left a plate of food outside, just like before even. Though Shadow slept inside now, it was a habit she couldn't break. A silent thank you for all the nights he'd watched over her. Eleanor, June's mother, settled into the house slowly. She made tea with Grandma, fixed the fence with June, and sometimes just sat with Shadow, rubbing his graying head. "You brought me back," she whispered to him one quiet afternoon. "I don't know how, but you did." June sat beside her, tracing the old metal tag with her finger. "He always waited, Mama, even when it hurt." Eleanor smiled, tears in her eyes. "That's what love is, baby. Waiting, even when you don't know if you'll ever see someone again." Shadow seemed to listen, his eyes half closed, tail thumping softly. Every so often, he'd push himself up and limp to the door, looking back at June as if asking, "Are you coming?" Sometimes June followed, sitting on the porch steps, watching the world grow golden with evening light, one night after a day. Spent together baking bread and laughing over old stories, June woke before sunrise. The house was still, and the first blue light of dawn crept across the floor. She slipped out of bed and tiptoed downstairs, the pink ribbon tucked in her pocket. The plate she'd left out the night before was still full. June frowned. That had never happened before. She peeked into the living room. Shadow lay on his blanket, his breathing deep and peaceful. For a long moment, June just watched him, his body finally relaxed, his face gentle in sleep. She knelt beside him, her fingers shaking as she stroked his fur. "Good morning, Shadow," she whispered. "It's a new day," but Shadow didn't stir. June's heart thudded, cold and sharp. She pressed her ear to his side, listening for that steady beat, the breath that had comforted her so many nights. Nothing. Tears blurred her vision as she called softly, "Mama, Grandma." Her voice trembled, thick with fear. Eleanor and Grandma hurried downstairs, rushing to her side. Eleanor knelt and pressed her face into Shadow's fur. Grandma wrapped her arms around June, holding her close as the truth settled in the quiet room. He waited. June whispered, her voice breaking. "He brought you home. That's all he wanted." Eleanor stroked Shadow's head, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you, Duke. Thank you for never giving up on us. You're free now." They buried Shadow beneath the old oak tree in the backyard, in a patch of sunlight where he used to nap as a puppy. June placed the pink ribbon and the family photo on his grave. Eleanor knelt beside her, squeezing her hand. "He's with us always, in every memory, in every bit of love we share." Grandma brushed the dirt from her hands, looking up at the sky. He was more than a dog. He was hope. He was family. The days after felt quiet, softer around the edges. June still left the plate out every night, just in case. Sometimes, when the wind rustled through the trees or a shadow flickered at the porch's edge, she felt him there, a silent guardian watching over them. On the porch swing one evening, Eleanor hugged June close. "You gave him the happiest ending, you know. You brought him home." June smiled through her tears. "He brought you home too, and he made me brave." Eleanor nodded. "Bravery and love go together, June, and he taught us both." As twilight deepened, June pressed her ear to the wind, hoping to hear the soft thump of a tail or a familiar bark. But the night was gentle, the stars shining steady. The empty plate glimmered in the moonlight. A promise kept and a story finished. "Thank you, Shadow," June whispered into the dark. "Thank you for loving us. Thank you for waiting. I'll never forget you. Not ever." The porch light flickered on, and the house behind her glowed with warmth, no longer lonely, no longer waiting. June knew the pain would fade, but the love would last forever, and in that gentle hush, where sorrow and hope mixed, a family healed. Their hearts were full. The empty plate outside was not just an end, but a beginning, a reminder that love, once given, never really leaves. Did this story touch your heart? Give it a thumbs up, share it around, and drop your location in the comments.